नमो तस् भगवतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स। नमो तस् भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स। नमो तस् भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्स।
How do you, royal astrologers, interpret the Queen's dream?
Your wife, the Queen's dream, indicates that you are to have a son. He will possess tremendous merit, great power and might. He will be peerless.
My lord, tradition calls for me to return to my family home at Dewataha to give birth.
You have my permission.
Counselors, let's stop and rest here. We have now completed half of our journey. The forest park of Lumpini is so beautiful and shady. We've been traveling half the day. You must all be tired. Let's rest for a while.
Your Highness, if that is your wish, then please rest beneath that solitude over there.
I feel as if I'm about to give birth.
Quickly, join in and help. Her Majesty's time has come. Hurry, hurry!
I have heard the good news of your son's birth and have come to pay a visit.
Venerable Asita, I thank you very much. And as you have been respected by the Sakyan royal family for a long time now, would you be so kind as to examine my child's physical characteristics? The whole family gathered here would be able to hear.
Your Majesty, please place your child in the cradle first, so that I can see him well. This royal child exhibits all the characteristics of a great being laid down in the ancient texts. I have never seen any being with the signs expressed to such perfection.
Huh? Venerable Asita!
I have examined the characteristics of your newborn son. I predict that when your son has grown up, should he lead the household life, he will become a wheel-turning monarch, a great king of the world. But if he should leave, he will become a fully enlightened Buddha, supreme teacher of gods and humans. Oh, but it's such a pity.
What's such a pity, Venerable Asita?
It's a pity that I am too old to have the chance to live to see this great being grow up.
the future, my son will be a great being with more power and might than any other in the world. From the 108 Brahmins I invited for the naming ceremony, you 8 have been selected to interpret my baby son's characteristics. You are all proficient. Please give your prediction for my son's future life.
Your Majesty, having examined your son's characteristics, I predict that, should he inherit your throne, he will become a great wheel-turning monarch with an empire that spreads far in every direction. But should he go forth as a monk, he'll become the perfectly enlightened Buddha, the unequaled supreme teacher and guide to the world.
Venerable Kundanya, you are the last of the 8 Brahmins. Do you agree with the other 7 Brahmins that my son has 2 courses? Either to become a great wheel-turning monarch or to become a fully enlightened Buddha.
I have considered your son's characteristics in detail and can see only one path for him. He will certainly not live as a householder, but will go forth as a monk. Then he will become enlightened as the Lord Buddha. This is beyond doubt, Your Majesty.
You predict my son will reject the household life. What would cause him to make such a decision?
Your son will see 4 signs: an old man, a sick man, a dead man, and a monk. These signs will inspire him to give up the royal throne for the sake of the holy life, through which he will become enlightened as the Buddha.
Well, I would like my son to be a great wheel-turning monarch, ruling the 4 great continents, the greatest prestige for any king. From this point onwards, I will not allow my son to ever see an old, sick, or dead man or a monk.
Having predicted the prince's future life, the 8 Brahmins gave him the auspicious name Siddhartha, meaning he who will succeed in that which he desires. Having returned to their homes, each of the Brahmins instructed their sons that when the time comes for the new prince to leave the household life, they should go forth and follow him. Seven days after Prince Siddhartha's birth, his mother, Queen Siddhi Mahamaya, passed away. So King Suddhodana had Queen Siddhi Mahamaya's younger sister, Mahapachapati, raise Prince Siddhartha. Later, the king took Mahapachapati as his new queen. King Suddhodana and Queen Mahapachapati had a son and a daughter together. But the queen still loved and cared for Prince Siddhartha as if he were her own son.
Both of you would like to go and watch a plowing ceremony, wouldn't you? Today my father has had the city decorated in preparation for a great ceremony. It only takes place once a year. Go and watch. I will simply sit here. You needn't worry about me.
With your permission, we'll go and watch for a while. As soon as the ceremony is finished, we'll be right back, Your Highness.
Left alone in a peaceful and shady glade, Prince Siddhartha began to sit in meditation, attaining the tranquility of the first jhana. As the afternoon passed by, the shadows of all the trees moved with the course of the sun, except for the shade of the rose apple tree under which the prince sat. It did not shift position, but remained steadily in place. When the companions returned and saw this wonder, they were startled and conveyed the news to the king, who went to see for himself.
When my son was newly born, Sita the hermit came to look at him, and to my surprise he bowed at my son's feet. On that day, I also bowed to my son for the first time. Now, my son has performed this marvel. Having seen it, I feel I must bow to him for a second time.
When Prince Siddhartha was 7 years old, King Suddhodana had 3 ponds dug in the grounds of the palace, so that the prince could enjoy himself playing with his friend. Upon seeing that the prince had grown sufficiently to begin his education, King Suddhodana sent him to study with the renowned teacher Vamita. Prince Siddhartha trained in 18 arts and sciences until he was adept. He was his teacher's top student, and before too long, he had learnt all that his master could teach. When Prince Siddhartha reached the age of 16, King Suddhodana had 3 palaces built for his son, one in which to reside during the hot season, one for the rainy season, and one for the cold season. The king, wishing to prevent his son from leaving the household life, consulted with his ministers and obtained the hand of Princess Yasodhara for him in marriage. Time passed by until Prince Siddhartha reached the age of 29 years.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Today, I'm very pleased to be joining the Global Buddhist Congregation in Aurangabad, India, for this auspicious Wesak Full Moon Day program. Altogether, I have 7 questions. I will be touching on some of them. If I don't have time, if I have time, maybe I run through all of them. But I will be emphasizing, which I hope to share with the people today. The questions are just from 4 people. 7 questions from 4 people. So in order to connect with the wider Buddhist congregation in Aurangabad and also beyond that, in India, and perhaps also outside India, I will be touching on some aspects of the Buddhist teaching and practice, which I think are important. The first 3 questions, are from Sandip and Tipa Campbell from Nagpur. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Mr. Sandip Campbell from Nagpur, I have heard, has conceptualized and constructed Lokodra Bhikkhu Center, so specializing in Buddhist architecture. The 3 questions I have got from Sandip and Tipa Campbell. Number 1, how to practice to achieve 4 stages of Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahanta in today's busy schedule of modern world. Number 2 is also in some way related to the first question. That is, how to practice to achieve all the 4 stages till Arahanta in all 3 lifespans of childhood, adulthood, and old age. And number 3, what exactly we achieve when we become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahanta. I will not be describing the stages because all the great meditation masters, they have taken from the scriptures and have it explaining all those stages to their students. And the way they explain are also very interesting. I just would like to refer to you, for example, from Myanmar. the way Mahasi Sayadaw and his teacher Minkun Sayadaw is playing the 4 stages. Okay, they take from the suttas and also from the Visuddhimagga. Mogul Sayadaw, for example, didn't refer to the Visuddhimagga so much. Instead, he would refer to the canonical text of the 3 stages that we can see in the second sermon of the Buddha, the Anatta at the end. So when you talk about the 16 stages of achieving the Arya stage, okay, the path leading to all those 4 stages that you mentioned in your question, the 4 stages. So some teacher would describe the 16 stages taking from the Visuddhimagga and the Bodhisattva. Some teacher would go just by the canonical text. Of course, there are other teachers. I'm just mentioning the teacher that I'm familiar with. The teacher that I'm less familiar with, like Pao Sayadaw, who combined both the Samatha and Vipassana. And another very important teacher of our time, the most venerable Ajahn Chah of the Thai Forest Meditation Master. The way he described them is also very interesting, just as Pao Sayadaw. They don't contradict each other at all. Instead, as the Visuddhimagga mentioned to us, that each teacher explains only his own experience through his experience. The way people achieve these stages, these meditation stages, the final destination is the same, but some people would focus on physical matter. Some people would focus on some concept in the mind, the development of concept, how they disappear. Some people would focus on reaction. Some people would focus on pain, on vedana. Some people would focus on what they see outside. The temperaments are different. So about the 4 stages, I just would like to say this much, but I'm more interested in the part of your question when you say, in today's busy schedule of modern world, how do we achieve this? I think this question is very important. I just would like to recall one incident during the Buddha's time. One day, okay, this was in India. One day, a Buddhist monk, not just one day actually, regularly a Buddhist monk went to a family's house for his alms, for Pindapata, okay, to collect his alms round. Because he was a well-practiced monk. And the man from the family, from the household who donated, who offered his meal on daily basis, was very inspired. So he asked the monks how to practice. So the monks told him gradual steps, just one at a time. One at a time, starting from generosity and then to develop some ethics, some ethical behaviors towards other people, at work, at home, in the society, like this. And then, to train his mind directly using meditation. After that, he was making steady progress that he wanted to become a monk himself. So he became a monk. That was during the Buddha's time. This story is in Dhammapada. So when he became a monk, he because a monk is expected not just to practice for himself, but also to share his practice with other people. In order to do that, he had to follow a certain syllabus. So he studied the Vinaya, and then he studied more suttas. He studied about the details of the mind, Abhidhamma. Then one day, he just became so overwhelmed by the workload. Wow, I can't do this anymore. I'm leaving the monkhood. So he went to see the Buddha, and the Buddha said, forget all those things. Just focus on your mind. Just focus on your mind. Meaning the pattern of your mental reaction. How the mind reacts to food, how the mind reacts to the news, say in today when we read news on Facebook, on Twitter, okay, on social media, how the mind reacts to that. And when we see our friends or even our colleagues at work, customers, our superiors at work, and our subordinates, when we see them, we usually have thoughts about them. We usually have reaction to their behavior, to what they think. So what the Buddha was saying, just to focus on your mind, just one thing. And he became her. What I want to point out here is that we can make ourselves busy. In doing so, we can lose the big picture. Okay. Now, how busy is our life? All these choices are in our hand. But sometimes we cannot resist the peer pressure from the society. When people drive a nice car, you feel the pressure of having to drive a nice car. When people build a big house, then you feel the pressure of having a big house yourself. usually we do more than we need. Usually we get more than what we need. I want to emphasize that, okay, is possible to live our life simply. Okay, to live our life simply in this age. Okay, now I'd like to venture outside the question a little bit. You asked about the 4 stages. Now, without addressing them directly, I would like to say something that might be helpful to your question. To always look at our emotion. The Satipatthana Sutta, the discourse of mindfulness of the Buddha, talks about 2 emotions, meaning the Buddha summarized all of them into 2. Abhijja Domanassa. That's the word. Abhijja Domanassa. The 4 mindfulness, 4 foundation mindfulness, it doesn't matter which one we're inclined to focus on. It can be physical body, it can be vedana, the feeling, it can be the defilements influencing our mind, or it can be the Dhamma, that is the natural working of the mind. It doesn't matter which one we focus on. Vinyaya loke abhijja domanassa, the Buddha said at the beginning. In the summary, the Buddha gives the summary first. So when we go to work, if we observe our emotion, like and dislike, when we like something, when we like people, when we like program, when we become enthusiastic, when we like the outcome, just observe our emotion. But when we become depressed, when we become so stressed out, when we don't like certain things, maybe in the meeting, maybe in the email, maybe in the chat room, just observe that dislike, a feeling of dislike. We need to catch them there. If we catch them there, then all the defilements will appear. If we do so, we will find out how strong our personalizing tendency is. We tend to personalize. This person is like this. This person doesn't like me. This person is good towards me. That kind of personalizing, okay, personalization goes on all the time. When we do that, when we are caught up in that loop of personalization, we don't see dukkha or suffering as it is anymore. Instead, we see dukkha, we see suffering as me, as that person, as this person. This person is causing me suffering. See, look at the way this person is causing me suffering. When we view a situation that way, we are caught up in that loop of personalization. The way to transcend that is to look at ourselves as suffering and to also look at that person as suffering. We don't usually do that. We don't usually see that person as suffering. Instead, we see that person as causing us suffering. This is a very subtle point of what we call Sakaya Ditti, personalizing tendency. It's because of this outlook of our daily experiences that we get caught up here. We repeat our stress again and again. We repeat our negative thoughts again and again. The negative emotion just reproduce itself again and again. So if we can do this, not only that, we will look at our life and our environment in a simpler way. Actually, life will also become a lot more simple, not as busy as many people tend to think. When we personalize it, now there comes pride. Pride, individual pride. Oh, I need to achieve this, I need to achieve that. And we also look at ourselves as Indian, as Chinese, as Burmese, as English, as European, as American, Italian, Spanish, whatever. In that context, we also get caught up very easily. So when the Buddha talks about dukkha, the noble truth of dukkha, he's talking about how the essential need of transcending those limitations. And when we can do that, I think we are walking towards these 4 stages. Something that should anger people, if that doesn't anger you anymore. Instead, you just see pain in everyone and you want to help them. I think you are quite close there. I'd like to touch on the last part of your question. What exactly we achieve when we become Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahant? One discourse that many Theravada Buddhists know is called Mangala Sutta, the discourse on blessing, the 38 blessing. At the end of it, the Buddha says, okay, I'm going to recite in Pali. Puttasa loka dhammehi cittang yasana kampati asokang virajang khemang edang mangkalang mudam. I think this answers your question. What the Buddha says is, we are unshaken by the waves of experiences, negative experiences in the world. You know, I mean, unshakable mind. That unshakable mind is a profoundly peaceful mind, because we know ourselves. Our peace of mind doesn't last long. We meditate. After meditation, we feel good, we feel calm. And after we have started work, we start accumulating stress, and the impact of meditation, okay, evaporates. we don't seem to be able to hold on to the peace that we develop during the meditation. This is an example of a shaken mind, the mind shaken by the stress at work, the mind shaken by how people care about us or how people don't care about us, how people talk nicely about us or how people talk casually, quite dismissively, about us. So we are all quite shaken by those things, to the extent that we need to motivate ourselves again and again in life, at work, at home, in the society. People need to redefine, the goal of life, what they want to achieve, again and again. This is what they have got become ordinary once again, not exciting anymore. And they need to motivate themselves once again to work hard, to achieve more. I can see you use the word achieve, in all the three questions. Those 4 stages, I don't think they are achievements. They are about with what we have. They are about letting go. They are about letting go. And when we talk about letting go, think about fear that comes to our mind. Okay, if somebody has got a degree, and to let go of that degree and to never mention that again, you can see what fear that would bring to that person. You have experience, okay, behind you. That, and to never mention that, and just be ordinary, an ordinary person in the crowd. Think about how that would bring a lot of fear, a lot of insecure feeling towards you. So this fear causes us, okay, to accumulate more than what we need, to speak more than what we should, to make more friends than we need, to talk negatively of people than we ever should. So if we think about this in our daily life, the pressure from the society, from our surrounding, then we can come back to our mind, we can examine that being unshakable emotionally is quite an achievement. I think this is what ages will give us. In the Ratana Sutta, Yatinda Kilo Batawisito Siya, Jadubi Wate Asambakampiyo, Tatupamang Saburi Sangwatami Yo Arya Sajani Aweja Pasati. Idambi Sangi Ratanam Panita Edena Sajina Suatiyo. This is in the Ratana Sutta. This one talks about the Sotapanna, the lowest of the four achievements, if we use the word achievements. It says that someone who has achieved Sotapanna is unshakable. It's like a very huge, solid, and strong pillar. People used to have those days defending their city kingdom. When a city was a kingdom. Long before nation state came into existence. So those huge columns, they can stand the wind from four directions. It can the blow of the wind from four directions. A Sotapanna, somebody who has achieved Sotapanna. Compare with the ordinary person, Buddhajana, is unshakable in the face of the face of good income, less income because of the COVID-19. Everybody's income is affected, the majority of the people. So in that state, a Sotapanna's mind is steady. Look at when we have delicious food, the way our mind, the way our physical body enjoys it. And then when we're not familiar with the food, or when the food doesn't meet our expectation, the way we react to that, okay, the way we are not quite enthusiastic anymore with the food. See how we are shaken by this. A Sotapanna wouldn't be, a stream enterer wouldn't be like this anymore, wouldn't behave like this anymore. Of course, if you read the next stanza in the Ratana Sutta, there are times even a Sotapanna is forgetful. Being distracted by the sensual world, it can still happen. Busang Bamatta. That's the word. But even if a Sotapanna is so forgetful, that Sotapanna will never be reborn more than 7 times in the human world. Will not suffer more than 7 the description in the Ratana Sutta. So I hope you read more of the Ratana Sutta. Let me go to other question. I have got two questions from Mr. Rohan Kangurde. Number one is, by applying the Dhamma in day-to-day life, how to concentrate on work or study when you are miserable or stressed. And the second one, how to control anger according to the Dhamma. Okay, first let's talk about stress. Your first question is about stress. Stress management in daily life. I'd like to talk about two things. The attitude to life. We should look at life as ever as something never completely fulfilled forever. We may feel satisfied and accomplished sometime, but that feeling doesn't last long. And when we look at other people we consider achieve more than us, now our mind changes. When we think that there are people who are working very hard, or who might be achieving what we have achieved, and we can feel threatened by the achievement. So I think to look at the world as a place where we can never really fulfill our expectation, our desire, our wishes completely. To always look at life as having something missing. This attitude is very important. You can look at the index of world economy. Even the highest achieving country in economic sense. Okay. In America, about 20% of the working adults, okay, they once in their life they have to use antidepressants. According to Professor Stephen Trizek, you can listen to his lecture on YouTube. You can on YouTube, like 40 seconds of compassion can save a life. With this, okay, his lecture will come. It's a TED talk, but he also has a longer version of that talk. He emphasized compassion. And another professor, another medics, okay, from Stanford University, Professor James Doty, a brain surgeon, who has set up Center for Compassion and Altruism. He also, has some data on this. I mean, how people feel unsatisfied with their life, with their achievements, because success is relative. It's never absolute. Then we need to ask a question. With this attitude, we need to ask a question: what do I want to achieve? Here, so long you want to achieve for yourself, you will be creating more and more stress. In the Buddhist attitude, I talk about the Buddha, our achievement has to be connected with our contribution to the society. The Buddha talks about Buddhatacharya, Jnanatacharya, Lokatacharya. Buddhatacharya is for self-achievement. Ability, enhancing his wisdom and compassion so that he can help the whole world. But that achievement, shouldn't be looked at in isolation, because he always connected that with helping his families and friends and his fellow countrymen. If we say in India, fellow Indian people, regardless of caste, belief, and social status. The third one is Lokatacharya. This one is about the wider world. It's about looking beyond India. It's about looking beyond our country. In my case here in Myanmar, sometimes I also reside in the UK. So it's about looking beyond the United Kingdom. It's about looking at our immediate surrounding. Look at the COVID-19, how we are interrelated, for good or for bad. We are so interrelated. So it's not possible just for me to stay safe if people around me are not safe. But just for people in my university, in my monastery, in my hometown, to be safe, regardless of what happened to other people in other parts of Myanmar or in other parts of Southeast Asia or Asia, that will not happen. The safety of the people in India is connected with the safety of the people in Myanmar, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in China, in Bhutan. This is your immediate neighbors. And actually, more than that. We can see now this pandemic of coronavirus is teaching us that to be thinking only about ourselves, our own achievement, that will not work. In order for us to do well, other people must do well as well. Millions of migrant workers, migrant workers, for example, in India, their safety and their welfare and their well-being is tied to the welfare of the state. If more than 100 million of people okay, find themselves unable to feed their family. I'm talking about India, but this is true to Myanmar, to Thailand, to Singapore, migrant workers in Singapore. If they are not safe, if we don't care about them, the other parts of the society will collapse easily, will be in danger. Whatever progress we have made will be jeopardized. That is why, as an attitude, okay, it's important to link your own aspiration with the well-being of the society. If you engineering, it's very important for you to become a good engineer. This is your personal aspiration. And to get a good job, tying to the progress of India. If you become a good engineer, this is good for India. Actually, it's more than India. It's good for the whole world. So with that desire to contribute to the bigger society, the wider society, to help relieve the suffering, the shortcoming in this society. So we will always be highly motivated, and our happiness comes from serving the society. So this is attitude. The training, when it comes to the training, of course, we are so lucky these days. We have meditation courses everywhere. In India, outside India, in the West, meditation centers, and one can choose what one likes. So this training is important, but this I'm talking about a more formal training. I think it's important to do a meditation retreat. If you can't do a long one, at least a few days of mind training, intensive training is very important. For 8 hours a day. And this training, everybody needs it. Because the stress and the pressure from society, the intensity of the play, the intensity of the sport is so great. If they don't practice, how can they last until the end of the game? So this is, but in addition to that, I like to talk about emotion training, sankappa, usually translated as right thought. I like to be a little bit provocative and translate this as right emotion. It talks about emotion. The second one is compassion, karuna. The third one is the ability to let go means to heal. Okay, if you're very stressed out at work, you come home, you should be able to take a bit of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to sit down and reflect on that. Maybe just breathe in and out, just to heal what you have gone through during the day. Part of letting go. In Pali is called Nekkhamma Sankappa. This emotion training is very important. We don't pay attention to emotion. We don't express them. We don't discuss about them. We see people talking about emotion as being weak. Actually, in the Buddhist tradition, emotion is emphasized. You talk about, you can look at the 10 duties of a ruler or a king, a government. The majority of those 10 factors, they are about emotion intelligence, EQ. You can look at the 10 defilements. They are about negative emotions. So being able to weaken our negative emotion is actually walking towards the 4 stages that the earlier question referred to. Your second one is how to control anger. I already mentioned about attitude. If you expect, okay, there will be shortcoming everywhere, at work, at home, with government decision, with implementation. If they explode. Instead, you can deal with the situation calmly and improve it. So expectation is important. Benjamin Disraeli, one of the former British Prime Minister, has a phrase that everybody knows: hope for the best and expect the worst. When the Buddha talks about dukkha satya, the truth of suffering, he's talking about more than expecting the worst. He's actually talking about familiarizing ourselves with the worst, training our mind with the worst, with suffering. Only then we can develop resilience. Another thing regarding anger is that sometimes we use anger to justify our action, our reaction. It's always personalizing. We expect someone to perform up to a certain standard when that person doesn't, when that person has not performed. We feel frustrated, and that leads to anger. We have a choice actually. To get angry is one choice. Not to get angry, but to feel compassionate is another. What compassionate here? Compassion is misunderstood very often. Compassion is about empathizing the failure of that person and wishing to help improve. But if we just condemn, that's not compassion. If we just turn a blind eye, we remain passive, that's not compassion either. Para dukkha panayana kara bhavati lakkhana karuna. This is from Abhidhamma commentary. If you listen to the two professors I mentioned earlier, they have taken the definition of compassion and used that as a scientific definition of compassion. I want to refer you to the Oxford Handbook of Compassion Science, published in 2017. They have one chapter tracing the Buddhist roots of compassion and its influence on the scientific study of compassion. So when you have anger, and maybe if you don't have meditation training, maybe it's difficult for you to actually control anger there and then. But afterwards, if you sit down and reflect on that, there are only two possibilities. One is you blame someone. The other is you don't blame other people, actually you blame yourself. Only two reactions. And look at those two reactions without judging good or bad. Just feel the pain of blaming yourself, the pain of blaming someone. When you blame someone else, you are enraged, actually, you are suffering. When you blame yourself, you're actually damaging your own self-confidence. You're just looking at yourself very negatively. You blame someone, you look at that person negatively. See how we suffer from negative emotion, negative outlook, negative thinking. We can improve without this negative thinking. Sometimes we fear so much that if we don't blame, if we don't be harsh on people, if we don't show our anger, that they wouldn't take any hint of what's going wrong, and they wouldn't improve. The intention looks good, but the way we go about that, we go about implementing that intention is wrong. Is wrong. So just to observe the automatic reaction of blaming someone else or blaming yourself. Breathe in and out, slow and gentle. Okay, this is a habit, this is a pattern. If you get this, your anger will be controlled. The last two questions come from two people. The first one is from Mr. Dada Rao from Mumbai. His question is, what should be the mechanism of having Buddhist studies in different parts of India at the university level? Practice. But when we talk about university level, we need to talk about research. Research in Buddhist studies. Research means bringing in new knowledge. That's what research is. We don't pretend that we know everything. We don't pretend that we know all the answers. Instead, we need to be searching. We need to be searching, especially in applying the Buddhist teaching to today's problem, in today's world. We need to be asking more questions, searching for answers. It's a lot easier to understand the words of the Buddha from scientific point of view, from philosophical point of view, from neurological point of view, from sociological point of view. It's a lot easier. So if Buddhism is studied with those subjects, then I think at the university level, we will do well. Of course, for Theravada Buddhism, we have to study Pali properly so that we can read the original sources. So at the university level, we talk about a study skill to use primary English for people who are interested in Vajrayana Buddhism. That's about studying Tibetan, the Tibetan language, and also a lot of secondary literature in English mainly, but you also have some in French. For people who are interested in Mahayana Buddhism, then to study Chinese Buddhism is very important, and perhaps also Sanskrit. And then to read the secondary literature as much as possible. We can only begin modestly, starting with a teacher who is very good with research, who has published something. So to emphasize research at the university level, if we get one person who is active in research, that everything will grow around that person. But without research, we will be recycling all knowledge, all interpretation. There's no one university that can do everything about Buddhist studies. I have studied at Oxford University. I have been to conference at many universities in Europe and in America and some part of Asia, including India, like Mumbai, New Delhi, and Sarnath, Tibetan higher Buddhist studies universities like that, Nalanda and that. There's no one single Buddhist study department that can do everything. So we have to coordinate, we have to share our knowledge, we have to share our expertise. Getting a scholar who is very good in research and building like. Last question is, how do we start more Buddhist studies center for layperson in India who wants to gain more knowledge about Buddhism and ways to practice it? Center is actually expensive. Before you start a center, if you can start a group, it's better. A practicing group. You meet regularly. Maybe once in fortnight you come together for, or every week perhaps. Maybe once a month you come together longer. So you build them a community of practitioners before you build a center. That can be in somebody's house. That can be in a place, maybe in a school, in a community center, like that. This wouldn't cost you so much. In Hungary, in Central Europe, in 1989, as soon as communism collapsed, 12 Buddhists, who have long been Buddhist practitioners, they came together. Some practiced Theravada Buddhism, some practiced in Buddhism, Japanese Zen Buddhism. 12 people, they came together. And also their money, they continued together because they wanted to share. They collected only $200. $200. With that $200, they rented a room in Budapest and advertised class. Everyone can come and join. So all those 12 people, they share their experiences. They borrowed their books. With those 200, they were able to rent for 6 months. After 6 months, they had no idea what they were going to do. You know what? They built a community of interested people who were interested in the practice. Within 6 weeks, within 6 months, the community has become so large that they cannot stop anymore. They have to find a way to continue. So they went to the government asking for an office of the Communist Party because they have a certain number of people behind them. They have got the expertise. They have the experience of 6 months to prove that they can work together. They have a way of operating. So the government gave them free an office which used to be the Communist Party's office in one part of Hungary, in one part of Budapest. You know, a Buddhist college, the only Buddhist college recognized by the European Union and financed by the Hungarian government as well as the EU. What I'm saying is that instead of going for a space first, you build up the community first. If the community is strong, a center, any center, is just a matter of time. I'd like to wish all of you happy Wesak. I wish all of you strength, not just to overcome this COVID-19, the coronavirus yourself, but also to help other people to stand on their feet, to rebuild their life once again for those who have lost something, and for people who are already helping other people, so that you can also be part of those selfish, selfless, selfless and altruistic endeavor, something which the Buddha always encourages. By connecting with our own dukkha, we connect with other people's suffering. By looking at other people's suffering, we also relieve the stress that we have, the suffering that we have. We are just so interdependent. With this, I wish you a very happy Wesak once again.